the Shadow Crew podcast.
Hey.
Go.
Hey,
We're live?
Hey, we're live. We're live.
Uh-huh.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Shadow Crew podcast, episode number 23. Thanks for listening, tuning in on the live stream here on multiple platforms on this fine Friday evening. Thanks for joining. As always, drop a comment, like, subscribe. It only helps the channel grow. For those of you listening for the first time, we talk about a variety of pop culture related items, from comic books to films to TV to toys. We're all over the place. We just like to have fun. And it's something we do. We hang out at a bar or a restaurant or group chat. We like to bring it live on the podcast here every Friday. So for those of you who've listened before, thanks for joining in. We got a awesome amount of topics this week and a special guest that's going to be joining us. But before we unveil our special guest here on the Shadow Crew podcast, we're going to talk a little bit about the DC characters looming in public domain. So as you all know, a couple of weeks ago, the Mickey Mouse, the original Steamboat Willie, became available for a lot of other people outside of Disney to use. Well, guess what? Superman, Lois Lane, Batman, Joker over the next 12, 15 years will be available. We'll get into that. For those toy fans, the McFarlane Toys that are all over your Target and Walmarts, he's got all the different DC universe, Spawn universe, crazy price hike. And so our special guest is pretty adamant about sharing his thoughts on what this means for the industry. We're going to talk a little bit about Transformers and Thundercats and the new Indiana Jones video game, which I know Dr. Brantley's super excited about, but 1 million views plus on the IG and YouTube channel. And then lastly, our main topic of the evening, in a galaxy far, far away, to boldly go where nobody has gone before. It is Star Trek versus Star Wars in 2024. So it's not a retrospect, but it is like, what's more exciting this year and beyond? What franchise has the most hope? You all excited about this, gentlemen?
Yes, because no one's ever talked about Star Wars versus Star Trek before. This is the first time kind of a thing.
Brand new topic.
I mean, we're
I
breaking
highly
new
doubt
ground.
people even know the difference. Let's be real. Okay.
Yeah,
It's true.
I don't think anyone knows that shit. And this is just going to be a quick conversation.
We like the buck against the curb, brother.
Yeah.
Well, without further ado, we will invite onto the podcast our guest, actually the man of the hour, the Shadow himself. Mr. Shadow is here.
Oh, there he is.
Shadow, for those of you who don't know Shadow, ex-pro wrestler, radio, film, TV, producer, writer, entertainer, and obviously part of this channel. And check out Shadow's videos on various platforms that we have to find the best deals of toys and other related content. We got a big thing coming up, Royal Rumble, for you wrestling fans, and now Shadow's going to talk a bit about that next week when that happens. But big things happening in the wrestling world. So Shadow, welcome, first time, episode 23. I know everyone listening live, and also but like they're finally excited to see who the hell is Shadow. He is here. He has arrived.
Hey, thanks, guys. I'm glad to be here. I know it took me 23 episodes to get here, but I'm here. I'm sorry it took me so long. You know, I've been a little busy doing this, doing that, and everything else like that, but I'm here now. Yes, this Shadow has arrived. I'm excited, man. I'm excited. I love the show. I freaking watch it every week, man. I'm enjoying what you guys are doing, man. I love everything and all the subjects and topics that you guys have been coming up with and stuff. And I'm also enjoying the Chatmatic unveils. I'm also enjoying Dr. Brentley and Mr. Storm's specials that they do and stuff. I love the Christmas special. I love the horror specials. Man, yeah, I'm just enjoying everything. I did like the unveil of was it Alf, Mr. Manic. I enjoyed that and stuff. So yeah, I'm excited. And also, I got to give a shout out to the tech. He used to be the webmaster. Now he is the tech master. The tech master, giving a shout out to him and stuff. And the Iceman who's holding it down. Yeah, absolutely, guys. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome, man. Well, we're excited to have you on the channel. We're going to jump right into the thick of things. And our first talk before we get into the meaty topic that I know, Shadow, you want to talk about McFarlane Toys, but we're going to jump right into Superman, Lois Lane, Batman, Joker, Wonder Woman in public domain in the next 12, 15 years. Perhaps for those who haven't read the article, Dr. Brentley, you want to just give a summary of what's happening with these characters?
Yeah, just like Steamboat Willie, now it's coming up on I think it's 99 years that, any intellectual property that you create, after that time period, it goes into the public domain. Anyone can pretty much do what they want with it. But with these characters, they've changed over the years. So this is only those original first versions of it. And then as each year goes by, they can add the new things. So like, Robin and Joker come like a year later. And, so slowly things like Superman comes out. And then Lois Lane is like a year later. Jimmy Olsen is a couple years later. So Kryptonite is not available at first because that wasn't until a couple years. So, you can start telling stories with these characters, but it can only be what that original thing was.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's why we call him Dr. Brentley, because no one else could have put that as eloquently as Mr. Dr. Brentley.
So I guess the question is are we going to see 50 different versions of Batman when the time comes?
Uh-huh.
And does that ruin the Batman? I feel like you're going to see all these, we're going to, just like Steamboat Willie, we're going to see a Mickey Mouse horror film. Is Batman going to be in soap operas, and is he going to be?
Well, now see that's a good thing. They can use him for things like that. Put a guy in a costume and they don't have to get DC approval as long as it looks like that old version with the stupid really bad ears and everything.
Well, let's put it like this. Steamboat Willie got his reckoning. I think there's a lot of creators out there have been getting kind of punished over the years by some of these mega corporations, and it's a little get back time now. So I absolutely can see Batman, Superman, I believe Wonder Woman, a couple of those other characters. Yeah, it's going to be free range. And the only people that are going to be happy is Marvel, because they got a little bit of time for some of the
they got
really
30 years
characters. So.
But the thing is, they cannot do anything that will be confused with the current day Batman or Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they can't do anything that looks like the current DC stuff. So it has to definitely look cheap or horror or something else,
Will they be able to use the name too? Batman?
Yes, the Batman, I believe, you'll be able to use.
So here's my concept: Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and a baby. And you do 3 men and a little baby, but you just have 3 heroes and a baby, and it's a comedy, and it's freaking wacky and stupid. But it's just the title alone, people show up to the theater. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and a baby. You know what I mean? You could have Steve Carell play Batman. I mean, this is how crazy and wacky this shit's gonna get. Let's be honest, right? If Mickey Mouse is running around stabbing people in a horror film, you damn well better believe there's going to be some crazy stuff. I'm also thinking, again, I love using Cheech and Chong as a reference for Seth Rogen. Batman and Superman in a Cheech and Chong style movie would be amazing.
Now that is something. I would not a superhero stoner movie, sure.
It could happen. It could happen.
Well, honestly, I think that it depends on who's producing it and who's making it, because okay, cool, great, they did a Winnie the Pooh horror movie. How good was that? There's going to be tons of people that make an attempt, or at least a few, but honestly, it has to really translate into modern day, old school, trendy, something that really draws you in, which was already done, Brightburn. Not saying that was a great movie, but I'm just saying he took the Superman concept and he brought it, he modernized it, and it got a lot of people's attention. So, oh my God, this could be like, this is Superman. So, you know, you do something like that, and you got the names now, it might, you know, you might have a hit.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, any other last thoughts on this? I mean, I think we've got some time before this actually happens, but I'm more interested to see what this whole Mickey Mouse thing turns into over the next couple of years.
Yes, and DC is as well. They're going to be saying, like, what are their lawyers doing? Because we got to get our guys on it.
I just think it'll be exciting to actually finally have a good DCU. You know what I mean?
Look, a fan-made one at this
Like,
point is
I
probably going to be better.
I mean, we've seen the shit the fans make, and then it's like, wait, why isn't that coming out, right? But,
Well, all I can tell you is that chances are, by the time they do fall into public domain, I don't believe James Gunn's going to be at DC. So.
yeah, I don't even think he'll be a DCU when his shit comes out.
Well, I gotta ask a question. How much time do you give James Gunn before he's done?
I give James Gunn the amount of time that probably his action figure line from the movies to hit Ross will be he will be fired in quicker time post movie than those figures heading to Ross. Which is like a 3-month turnaround time.
Yeah, I don't give James Gunn's run more than like 2 movies, only because like he single-handedly destroyed any reason for anybody to go watch the other fucking movies that came out. Like it was just like, well, there's no reason for me to see Aquaman. I don't care about that. Black Adam was rad. They got Henry Cavill to come in and like show up at the end and talk to like Black Adam, and then they were like, I guess that's not going to happen now. And that's one of the more recent movies where I was like, oh, if that happens, I'm in. And then it was like, oh wait, no, hold on, James Gunn decided that he's going to get some.
Well, that brings the question. It's like, why isn't there a platform or an avenue for like guys like Henry Cavill, who was Superman, was all the stuff, and then got X'd out? People like The Rock, who, like, you know, you had a bad script, you had a bad director, you had a bad producer, you just had a terrible film. Why don't they create something new? There's plenty of new content out there to create new. I think Alex and I were talking about, it's like, you know what I would love to see make a big return, action figure wise, is Cops and Crooks. Never been done. From the 70s. Never been done. No one's touched it. I would love to see that recreated, new action figures, all that stuff. Because then, yeah, of course, they would be worth more money. But I sold most of them.
Well, I think too, though, like that. The reason why I think that doesn't exist is the same reason why you don't really have. I mean, we talked about this a while ago, but like Vertigo Comics getting axed from DC. And Vertigo Comics was an avenue to try new things, to experiment with the lesser known characters.
Weird things.
Yeah, and so like it's the same thing with movies. Like unless it's an original, right? It's like the question I like to ask is, would Stranger Things have been just as big if it was a movie and not a series?
No,
I don't think so.
Right? Because people wouldn't take a chance on it if it was a movie, because when you go to a movie,
everyone that saw it said, "Oh my God, this is fantastic!" It would build up word of mouth if it was as good as the series, and people would see it.
Like John Wick.
Or you could say like the Matrix. I remember I hadn't even seen the television promo for the Matrix, and I think my cousin was like, "Wow, man! Like, I know you're in the comic books. You got to see this movie." And he dragged me to the theater, and I was like, "Wow, actually, this was pretty good." I think if it's good enough, but I think also Mr. Maddox does have a very good point, is that the studios don't want to take chances on something that is unknown, unproven. They're going to try to make all the money as possible. And if they have to keep regurgitating the same thing, they're just going to keep doing that because, one, they got shareholders. Two is that they feel like, you know, look how many Batman movies have we seen in the last decade. It seems like there's been like 3 rotations of them rolling out, from the end of Nolan's to, like, you know, whatever Zack Snyder was able to do in his 2, well, technically 3. And then you've got now Robert Pattinson. They keep rolling. And now there's going to be another Batman going alongside that. So they're just going to keep regurgitating the same thing just to keep capitalizing on that money, man.
But
Well,
I think that that's the biggest problem in Hollywood right now, because like if you not including this year, because this year was the anomaly. Everybody started going back to the theaters. That's why Oppenheimer and Barbie, which I have yet to see and will not see, was so successful. People grow, nostalgia, whatever. But if you look back a year ago or 2 years ago, it was low budget movies that you never heard of, screenwriters and actors, or not actors, but screenwriters and stuff that you've never heard of that won Oscars. So like literally there's room to take a chance. You just don't have to spend $250 million to make a movie. You could spend 25 million and say, hey, we spent 25, but guess what? On streaming, it made, it made its money back or whatever and stuff. We got the hits, we got subscribers. You could spend $25 million and just with a great script and a great, concept, make a great movie that no one's ever heard of before.
Well, they are taking a big risk with a character that no one's ever heard of, and that's Madam Web that's coming out. So,
oh my God!
So they are taking a risk. They are taking a risk, a big risk.
But they put money behind that, though. They put money behind that.
Well, because they only have so many Spider-Man characters they can make movies out of, right? Sony's like, well, what do we got? Morbius didn't work. Madam Web, sure.
Look, you literally could have taken what is it? I think it's Hammerhead in the Spider-Man.
I believe so. Yes, I think
you could have taken Hammerhead as a dude with a big giant head that is a street level character and made a great movie for real cheap. But I watched this trailer and I was just talking to somebody. They sent me a picture and I'm like, yo, this is going to be the worst movie I've ever seen, and it's going to be trash. It does not look like it's in the Spider-Verse. It has no concept other than the guy wearing a spider character, and it looks like the trailer alone, the extended trailer alone, you had no idea this was the Spider-Verse until the last 30 seconds of the damn trailer.
But it's not a Spider-Verse. They said it's its own timeline. The movie takes place in its own
Spider-Man. It's a Spider-Man thing. So just like Venom is not the Spider-Verse, it's still Spider-Man shit.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
Yeah. Trash, man.
It's
the longest Sony Spider-Man movie to date.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. I'd rather see Doc Ock movie with like tinfoil arms, like a B movie being filmed in someone's backyard than Madam Web.
I mean, like, I could just throw this in. The best show that I'm watching right now, and just because it's like you get to see Kurt Russell and his son, not on screen together, but in the same series, which I love watching generations, in a project together. Monarch is fantastic. It's a great show. It's a great series. Mystery. You're waiting for the next episode to happen and stuff. Now, versus Echo, which Mr. Stone broke down to me, that was probably the worst thing I've ever seen, and that was just like horrid. But like, you can do great content, and Monarch, okay, Godzilla's in it, but it's still like it's taking a risk because it's like it's just called Monarch. It's not called Godzilla or King Kong or any other things. You can be smart about things, and I don't think that this web thing is smart. I think that there's plenty of things that they could have done. There's plenty of projects they could. And what's the one thing? And this is what the fans are asking for. One thing, fans been begging for one thing, and you got it in Into the Spider-Verse, but you want to see the live action of Miles Morales. What's the holdup? What's the problem?
I'd rather them stick to animation because they haven't figured out how to make a good movie. Like until they prove they can make a good movie, don't waste that character because that's too precious of a story and a character until they prove. And it's not going to be Madam Web. Like don't ruin it. Like it'd be cool to see like Ghost Spider, but don't make a movie unless you can stick to animation until you figure out, because right now the anime. Like the Blade, we were talking about the Blade thing. I don't know, Shadowe, if you've seen the Blade video game trailer. So it's literally like a minute, and if you watch it, it's not a lot, but it's just like wow, like that's a hype. Like that was a real trailer for the movie. You'd be excited. I'm a little concerned about the actual Blade movie that they're potentially going to release or whatever. That's another character. It's like, man, Marvel has not proven yet that they can do anything really right. So that'd
Yeah.
suck if Blade come out and it's like a Madam Web, or if it's like a half-ass Echo. That's the concern, is these characters.
What about Craven?
This is gonna be a bomb too.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It looks bad to you guys. Okay.
Yeah,
It looks better than the Madam Web. I tell you that.
Oh yeah, I'd watch Craven before Madam Web. Are you kidding me? Shit, I watched Craven back. I'd watch it backwards before Madam Web.
Just for Russell Crowe. I know Russell Crowe is going to be like a crazy stupid with a bad accent. It's going to be fun.
Well, look, we've talked about it every episode. It always circles back to how Marvel's executing their films and TV series. In the comic book spectrum, in the action figure toy line spectrum, McFarlane Toys. For those of you who are not toy collectors, but you may have seen them on the shelves, the DC multiverse figures, that is McFarlane. Tom McFarlane's done over the past 30 years, from licenses of NFL and NHL to Spawn figures to all kinds of other comic book characters. He's really dominated the industry for a long period of time, and some cool figures. Don't get me wrong, some of them have hit the Ross shelves, but an announcement recently is that there is going to be an increase in the prices that are already kind of outpriced themselves, and that's why we look for them at Ross and DD's and Goodwill. So we'll let our special guest, the toy man himself, Shadowe. What's your thoughts on this, on McFarlane and this price hike and the future of the toys?
Well, I gotta say, Mr. Storm called me and says, you hear about the new deal he did with Hasbro, and I'm like, nah. And he broke it down to me and he explained everything. I'm like, oh, cool, man. Transformer action figures by McFarlane, G.I. Joe by McFarlane. Oh, that's gonna be awesome. Then he said, but $40 a figure. Okay, listen. You would spend $40 when there is like a limited edition, special edition, something that makes you say, I gotta get this figure. But if I'm honestly right now, when I was in Target today, walked into the store at Target, I saw McFarlane figures that were $19.99 at $24.99. And I'm like, okay, holiday's over. Everything's going back to regular price. You can look at WWE figures now that are $25 as well. But I can't even wrap it in my head on a level of like, okay, I know that there's licensing fees. I know that they get a big chunk of the money. I know that you have to pay Hasbro something. And now you also have to pay whoever it is that you like, Transformers or G.I. Joe's, whoever you getting the license to do, you got to pay them a fee. But God's honest truth. And I'll go back to my favorite figures all time is Jax, WWE, Ruthless Aggression. Those were the best figures ever made. And back, I know it was years ago, but $9.99. They were $10 all through the years. And then when they came up with the Super Deluxe, the editions, they were $15. But these were the best figures. 6-inch, 7-inch action figures that were fantastic. So I look at everything that McFarlane has done, and there's some great stuff. Paint jobs, so forth and so on. But there is a mold, a base mold that is basically universal to all the male figures and then all the female figures. So I said, okay, you got a base mold. Now you got to paint them. All right, cool. We got to paint them. You got to put the logo on the chest or whatever and stuff. So you got the Superman logo. Superman logo doesn't change. So if you tell me you're going to do a different Superman logo, okay, cool, whatever and stuff, should be the same price. Now, intricate, detailed Transformers, it's going to be more. All right, tack on $1, tack on $2. I'm cool with that, especially if it's off the hook. G.I. Joes, they got more gear, more equipment, and everything else like that. Tack on $1, tack on $2. But when you tell me that you are basically adding $20, because they're $19.99, the basic DC, whatever McFarlane figures are $19.99 or $19.95. So when you tell me you tacking on $20, there's no way I'm going to buy it. And I will just say this one thing: hold your money, don't spend it, even if you like it, even if you love it. Unless you're obsessed with it, buy it. But other than that, don't do nothing. Wait till November 2024, and you will find it at Ross. You will find it at what's the other store? Ross, Factory Outlet, Ollie's. You will find it at all the clearance stores that
Burlington Coat Factory.
Burlington Coat Factory. I was just at Ross yesterday, and guess what? There's still McFarlane figures there.
Mm-hmm.
So trust me when I tell you, and ladies and gentlemen, and that don't get it unless you're really obsessed. Like, I've been obsessed with a Lobo, and I've been wanting a Lobo for about 10 years now. And when McFarlane dealt the Build-to-Figure one, I was like, I gotta have it. Then he now has another one, but it was like $25, $30. I'm like, not paying for it. Wait, if I get lucky and I find a Lobo, cool, fantastic, I'll get it. But I'm not gonna spend. I will spend $20 on a figure if it's a really good figure. $20 is my max. That's my peak. I won't spend $25. I won't spend $22.95. I will definitely not spend $40 on a mother effing regular action figure just because it's G.I. Joe. I'm sorry.
Well, how much of the price increase? So I don't know. And
20.
No. I'm saying, like, so there's this whole talk about Hasbro moving production to India, right?
Oh, God.
So like, how much of the price increase do you think has to do with that? Right? Because they're not.
It should be a decrease, if anything.
No, it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be.
I don't think so. I think the labor laws, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not an attorney and I don't act to be one, but I think the labor laws are a little bit different in India compared to China. And I think that there's the factories run. Like, if you moved Nikes to India, they'd probably be $500.
Well, yeah, I mean that. So, like, speaking of that, like, there when I was doing when Chris and I when we were doing the board game stuff, there was opportunities to for me to produce the entire thing in India, but the cost per unit would have been a lot more than it was in China. And so you have this thing happening right now where McFarlane, Hasbro, all this stuff, but people are starting to, like, look elsewhere to go for production on things. And I just don't know. I think that is getting pushed on to the collectors in terms of, like, price, because if they're producing it in India, we don't know that yet, but if that was the case, like, you don't know the quality, because, like, it's not really as big of a production firm as, like, China is, and so you gotta make up the potential loss of money somewhere.
Yeah, but it's not $20, man. I
agree with you, but you know.
And here's the thing with McFarlane, anyways. I just saw the latest line that he did with some of the multiverse figures, and his quality has started to go down. Some of those figures did not look as well as some of the ones we've seen at Ross. And I know there was a John Stewart Green Lantern figure that they had through Target that the quality has started to take. And that's the one thing that I think is pissing fans off a little bit more. It's just McFarlane stands in front of you and says, well, I'm champion. I keep the prices low. He's gone on several other channels.
He just said that last year in November.
Just did. And he was on all over the internet saying how he's a champion to the people. And I put my figures at this and everything. And then all of a sudden now we start him rolling into digital things. Oh, well, these are for the people that can't buy the figure. Well, they're probably cheaper than the figure to have an imaginary digital figure sitting in your computer. It kind of hurts when you're saying that you're the champion for all the collectors. And then you do a move that looks like you're just as bad as the greedy CEOs of the mega corporations that's dominating it. You can't have one and the other. So he might as well just say, look, hey, I got a business to run. I will respect it. But don't just go 4 months ago saying how I champion you, and then all of a sudden it's like I'm going to hit you with one of the biggest, because like, you know, at least the Star Wars Black Series, hey, we knew that pricing was that was pricing was 2 years ago when he was claiming that. But all of a sudden now, if he is moving productions into India or whatever, that's, bro, you should have copped that into the cost of doing business. But you don't kill your customer base just because you want to make an extra profit on it. It doesn't work like that.
They wouldn't be moving to India if he wasn't able to be exploiting people and saving some money somewhere.
True.
And-
You know, there's a reason.
And I'll say this, that a good friend, well, I don't want to say good friend, but a friend, Emily Clark, who used to run licensing at Jack Pacific, made it very clear, is the mold, the casting that they had, and once they had that saved them a lot of money, because basically all they were doing was coloring, and then you just do the head. So when it comes to McFarlane, he has the mold, he has the die cast for all of these figures, all these shapes, every shape you can imagine. All you're doing is the torso has adjustments, and then of course if there's gear. But here's the key. When it came to distribution, that's where the money's at. McFarlane gets his money up front. There's a minimum, just like when you do comic books. When you do comic books, there's okay, you have to sell at least 10,000 books in order for you to be, you know, whatever, blah blah blah. But with McFarlane, it comes down to this: if you think back when there was Jackson, there was the WWE, they had an entire aisle at Toys R Us. Yep. How did they get that? Because Toys R Us had to order a set amount of figures. Now, of course, the inventory was too high, and you would find all these Jakks figures on clearance when Christmas time comes. McFarlane is doing the same thing right now. Why do we find stuff at Ross? Why do we find it at these places for $5, $6 now? Because Target and Walmart's and all these other stores, they have a minimum to order in order to carry these figures. So this guy is making money hand over fist. So you can't tell me, it's like, oh, you know what? I got to sell 100,000 in order to like break even. He's already got orders for millions. So there's the break even is way surpassed that. So just imagine you sold $1 million at $20. Now you're selling $1 million at $40. And then what? His overhead, he ain't got no overhead as far as like the price mark, because McFarlane's the $20, that's his money. Now you increase that, say maybe $5, and then maybe $10 goes to Hasbro. Where's that other $5? The other $5 is basically for them to play with, to put on sale, and so forth and so on. So like this dude is making money. Hasbro, all of them, it's ridiculous. You can't explain it. You can't wave it off. You can't just say, hey, you know, it's the cost of doing business. No, it's not. Because when you see stuff and clearance at $5, that is because there was a base minimum that every store or every, you know, market, or the Targets and Walmarts and all that, they had to order. And then you already knew, like, yo, we got to carry it because people want it. But like, Jesus Christ, do we have to order 1 million of these figures? Like, I don't even know who the Flash is or whatever. So yeah, that's crazy.
Well, you also have like comparison, right? For like sales, like their sell-through rate. What was that like? Mm-hmm. If the sell-through rate wasn't good, they're not going to repurchase. And then when it does hit clearance, like they can only go so far before they lose their bottom dollar as a store for purchasing that up front. So all that shit to say that like he sells it at his cost to them and makes mad profit. And so anything above that is kind of like, it's just room to gain extra money and lose collectors, I think, because it's like at that rate of like $40 for some new figure, I would rather spend double that to go onto eBay and find like an old school figure, because I can't find it anymore. So the value of something that I can't just go and buy, you're now crossing that line when you're charging that much. And I think NECA gets away with murder sometimes on their price, their pricing. They do. But their quality is very good on every line.
That's true.
I gotta disagree with you on that one right there, because I got a mecha that I'm thinking in my head now. It's the star guy, whatever, with the white hair that's like thunder, and he's got a thunder symbol, whatever and stuff. I remember purchasing that for, I think it was like $30 or whatever and stuff. And it's like a 10-inch figure or an 8-inch figure. I got it. But you have to be delicate and careful with that, because the arm will fall off or the leg will fall off, and it'll be worth $0. And that also goes to, who's the guy that did the demon with the horns, the red demon and stuff? It was not Vertigo. Was it Vertigo?
No, are you talking about Hellboy?
No, not Hellboy. It's another figure. I don't have to pull those out, man. I got figures now to where it's like, man, these are so awesome. I had to open it and everything and stuff. Arm fell off. Leg fell off.
Are they
just like
the older NECA figures?
No, this was like, well, now of course, they're older now, but like when I purchased them, I've got a bin full of like guys with one leg missing, guys with arm missing and stuff, because it's like the sticks and the McFarlane stuff. Let me tell you something right now. The Bloodshot.
Yeah.
I bought, oh my God, I got to get Bloodshot. I bought the Bloodshot, purchased it, full price, everything, $20. Got it home. This is cool. Had to open it. I'll open it. Then like a couple of days later, I was trying to pose it. The leg fell off. And I couldn't, and I put it back, and then the leg fell off. The builder figures. This is McFarlane stuff. The builder figures. The one with Batista, the big one with the head and all that kind of stuff. Oh, okay, cool. I got all the pieces. They were on clearance. So I was like, okay, cool. I paid like $6 per figure. Now I can build it. Put it together. They don't match. One leg's bigger than the other. The one piece doesn't fit. The sockets don't fit. So I had to take another one from another builder figure, McFarlane, and then I put the torso on the Batista, and then I put the legs or something on the other thing, and I built this random McFarlane builder figure and stuff. But it's quality.
Well, that's why you're paying. That's why you're paying $40 for the legs to stick now. So, you know. I would, because we're gonna move on to the next topic, but what I would say is like they're slowly at that price range. Those figures, if I'm like Target specifically, all of those figures, if they're all going to be 40, need to move over to more of the premium section, because they're not for kids. They're not for kids anymore.
No,
and I think what Chet said about like, hey, I'd rather pay double to go on eBay and get like some exclusive. Look, if you're going to pay $40 for another 20 to 25, you can go Gentle Giant Studios and get a collector's bust for $65. And that's a hell of a lot more presentable on the desk or a shelf than an action figure from McFarlane, right? So like there's tons of that. You can even go to some of these other companies that do more collectable statues, and I'd pay $80 for something that I would keep long term versus I'm going to pay a Black Manta action figure for $40 that, well, how many poses can it do, right? And is it really designed to be a featured figure in a display case? So it's pretty crazy, and they're outpricing kids, and that's what sucks, because here we are, collectors, been around toys a long time. My daughter grows up, am I going to pay $40 to get her a Wonder Woman figure? I mean, it's ridiculous. So can
I just add this? One of the things that started the downfall of Jakks and why they didn't get a renewed license with WWE was because the Toys R Us, back when they were Toys R Us, they said, we're no longer going to carry these many figures, and you're not going to take up an aisle. They went from a full aisle to a half an aisle. Then they became a section, and everything went clearance. And then WWE moved to Mattel, and Jakks was done. Well, Jakks wasn't done. They were actually done after the Pirates of the Caribbean figures. But and now they're trying to make a comeback. But point being, McFarlane's taking up a lot of shelf space right now, and they're having this filled all these shelves with their stuff. And then when the year turns around and say how much we make on this quarter with the McFarlane stuff, all that's clearance. He's going to be done. He's going to have little shelf life, and his stuff is going to be back at where he started from, the collector stores.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I guess we had Shadow give us the last word on that.
Well, speaking, we mentioned Transformers just quickly before we get into a couple other things, just some hot topics. Transformers 1, the animated movie that's coming out this year. Big cast. You got Chris Hemsworth, Scarlett Johansson, John Hamm, some big voice actors in this. The story is of how Optimus Prime and Megatron first became enemies, which damn, I wish was live action, because that would have been badass to see. But with that kind of star power behind it, that tells me this animation is going to be great. What are your all thoughts? Because Transformers obviously worldwide popularity. The last film, Rise of the Beast, did really well in the box office. They're just popcorn movies, really cool. CGI is pretty dialed in. What do you think about an animated film to the big screen? You think it's going to do well?
I do. I think it's going to do well just because everyone that remembers watching the first animation that was in the theater and was like, you just killed everybody off in the first like 5 minutes, is like, cool, let's see what you got now. And to be honest, it's one of those things where it's like it's the right time. I think you have, they just started doing another push in the comics. That like the movies, like you said, they're like, you don't go to a Transformers live action Michael Bay explosive fest thinking you're gonna get like a good storyline. You go because it's like, I can sit down and shove popcorn in my face and be excited over all the visuals and the overproduced audio for the explosions and have fun. And so I think what this is going to do is get, as an animation film, and I love that Chris Hemsworth is the voice of Optimus Prime. I think as an animation and kind of like reigniting that, I think you have a lot more give that you can do in terms of just like how you want the scenes to look, and you could do a lot more for a lot less in animation than you can live action. I'm excited to see it. Hopefully it doesn't like it's not like a Kevin Smith He-Man thing, but we'll see.
Well, like I said, the one aspect that they always do pretty well is that Paramount, even when the Bay movies were bad, they were still grossing some kind of money.
Yep.
This is the first time since '86 that we're going to see an animated Transformer movie in the theater. And I think now there's a new generation that never got that first experience of it. The one thing that we know is that it's not going to be where they're killing off fan favorite characters. They're going to kill off probably prequel characters that we probably didn't know about in the first generation anyway. So I think it's a good thing. I think the voice cast, I'm always an opponent of having a good voice cast. I think sometimes it's unnecessary to have, that many star hitters in a movie, because then that makes the bottom line go a little bit better. But it sounds like everybody in there, from Scarlett Johansson to Chris Hemsworth, always very talented. So it's going to be interesting to see another Transformers. Almost 40 years on the screen after the first one.
And it's also Chris Hemsworth. I think it's his first voice
animation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever done an animation.
My concern with this, I'll be honest with you, my only concern is Optimus Prime and Peter Cullen is like Darth Vader and James Earl Jones.
But I think they're going to because it's the younger version.
But come on, dude. Optimus Prime is like such
He's
the
a robot.
iconic voice, man.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
It's going to be so weird where Chris Hemsworth is like, Autobots, roll out. It's just going to be so strange.
Well,
with the Australian accent. Autobots, roll out.
No, I don't think he's going to do that.
I mean, come on, Peter Cullen. But, I hope it's good. I mean, it's got it. Like, I don't think they'd sign up maybe just for a paycheck, but those are some pretty talented. Like Scarlett Johansson is signing up for a Transformers movie.
What role is she playing?
I think probably maybe RC. I wouldn't.
She's
his mom.
No, she's like the main. She's
girlfriend.
Her character's pink and gray. I forget the name.
So she's a Transformer, Autobot.
So my biggest concern is the animation
Alita
going to be good?
Alita 1, that's her name.
Yeah.
Is the animation going to be good? Is it going to be manga style? Is it going to be like the stuff that we see on Netflix? Because realistically, you have the CGI already. You have all these pieces. You can intermix it. How about like I can't remember the name of the show on Netflix. I can't remember the name of the show. Best animation I've ever seen in my entire life, and I can't remember the name of the show.
Recent?
Yeah, it's a video game. They turned it to animation. It was a YouTube series. Dang it! I can't remember the name. There's a style that intermixes 3D and CGI that is fantastic. But that's really my only question. I'll let Julian take over. But I just really worry and concerned is like, you're talking about epic level, and you're talking about if you've already done so many live action films, now you're going to release a film that is going to be just what? Manga style? Everybody's not into that. So, you got to give me more.
Now that you've brought it up, I'm wondering the reproductive process of Transformers. Do they have parents? I mean, they're robots. So, now, and if that's the case, then they're probably going to have like Bumblebee's parents, and then they're orphan, and he has to take care of little baby Bumblebee. That's my guess.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to go that deep in it, brother. The Allspark doesn't work that way.
I'm sorry.
John only runs so deep.
I found the show is Arcane.
Okay.
Arcane, yeah.
Arcane.
Well, here's
no, it wasn't good. It was the best animation I've ever freaking seen.
Here's the update. I'm just reading here. The animation is being done by Industrial Light and Magic.
Oh, that's gonna be good.
Okay,
now that's gonna be good.
Yeah, the last one they did was Rango, which won the Academy Award. It was
and Scarlett Johansson. She said, "I can't reveal too much," but like she was quoted saying it has a very dark, gritty feel to it.
Yeah,
and like the script is really great. So I mean, I hope it does well, man. I really like. I don't think it'll bomb because it's Transformers. But I mean, why would you sign up unless it's just a massive payday and you don't care? Because people do that for voice. Like Chris Pratt does. He's in every damn animated film at this point. He's carved out himself a nice career post Jurassic Park. But Industrial Light and Magic gives me hope.
Yeah.
I mean, what else did they do besides Rango? Because that was like that.
Just like
you think everything from Star Wars to Indiana Jones to their resume
Pirates
is one of the greatest resumes that has ever existed in cinema.
All the Transformers movies.
I think I trust them to do animation better. They are the top field.
You spend like the next 30 minutes out like boom, boom.
Have you ever heard of Indiana Jones?
No.
Okay, got you. Yes.
Yeah. Well, any last thoughts on Mr. Maddox before we move on to Indiana Jones as a topic? And then Shadow, I don't know how much longer you're going to be with us, but if you got more time, I love your thoughts before we get into Chet's last thoughts on this, because we're going to talk about the Thundercats.
Royal Rumble.
We want to talk about the Thundercats Dynamite comic book because Rob Liefeld's involved, and we want to get your thoughts on that. But first,
I gotta go.
Mr. Maddox, your last thoughts on Transformers.
No, I'm excited about it. Like I'm a Transformer person, like all the way. I think it's great. I didn't realize that John Hamm was also a voice actor in this thing. Like it's getting better and better the more I read about it.
Great.
We'll see. It could be a bomb, but I will always give Transformers a shot. I just hope there is a baby Grimlock. That's all I want. It's baby Grimlock.
Baby Grimlock. Well, just quickly.
Transformers babies. It's like Muppet Babies. I think you got something.
Come on, I can see that on Disney Plus.
Transformer baby.
So Thundercats #1. Several different covers. It was record sales for Dynamite Entertainment. It was Thundercats, big name, retro 80s. So I get that. Jay Lee did a cover. Rob Liefeld did a cover. So did this help the industry, or this is just another like marketing money ploy? Or do people come in, they do their covers, no one gives a shit about the story? We had a podcast maybe a couple of weeks ago about this. Is it just a money ploy? No one's going to continue reading it. issue 2 no one's picking up. It's basically, oh, Jay Lee did the cover, Rob Liefeld did the cover, Alex Ross did the cover, right? What's your thoughts?
I think that the sale two things. Dynamite picked up the license. Right, 2017 they tried to relaunch Thundercats. The first issue was good. The second issue sucked. No one picked it up afterwards. That's why it dropped. But I think that you have a massive push happening with like Super 7 and their toys and like the Thundercats layer. We've talked about this multiple times. People are trying to find whatever toy line hits. But what I think is happening is because they basically hoard out covers for Thundercats. The only reason why the purchasing was so high was because people were buying all of the number 1 issue covers because there's this hope that this will be one of the comics that you can invest in at $5 or whatever and turn it around for a profit on eBay a month after the stupid shit comes out. That's literally what I think is happening.
But who's buying a Liefeld cover?
Yeah,
anybody, because
there's a lot of people. He has a lot of fans.
There's a ton of people that are like Liefeld. Like, you know, you can have your own thoughts on Liefeld, right? But it's a known name, and people are going to buy it.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna tell you
group here on Liefeld. I'm just saying that like you have an opportunity to buy Thundercats #1 on Dynamite, new licensing.
I'm gonna break kayfabe for a second. Let me tell you right now, Rob Liefeld is an untalented person that was successful. The person that did everything for him, that made him successful, that still works for him, which I don't even understand, is Marat Michaels. Marat Michaels is the talent behind Rob Liefeld. He is that ghost artist. He is the guy that did all his finishes. Basically, Rob Liefeld, all he did was just some doodling, and then here, Marat, go ahead. These are my layouts. And then Marat would just basically redraw the whole GD books and stuff. Rob Liefeld is a hack. And anybody that's putting money in his pocket is a fool. Straight up. And I'm just saying that, not just to say just because I'm just feeling this way, but like I met him personally. I know the type of person he is. I met plenty of people. I can name off a list. Mr. Storm, Mr. Brentley, and Mr. Calkins can name off a list of the type of people we've dealt with in Hollywood that are the biggest assholes in the industry. And I'm telling you right now, Rob Liefeld does not deserve if you got Marat Michaels on Instagram running and trying to draw it, hey, I'll draw a monkey for you so I can pay my bills, while Rob Liefeld made millions off of all his blood, sweat, and tears. Man, I don't want to hear, dude. I don't even, man. Thundercats. Oh, okay, we were talking about Thundercats. My
bad. Here's the thing, man. It did 170K. Now, McFarlane did 20 covers to issue 300, and I think he did 110, maybe 125. It's in 10 years, it's one of the biggest. This is not a fluke. This is not 6 covers that got this book over the margin. What happened was there is an increasing point of fandom. It did come down to, I think Super 7 did for one of the few times help the sales push, but also this writing team, they don't have, this is not like Jim Lee's coming in and doing like 3 issues of the book or some major dude. They've got people that not a lot of people know in this industry. So that lets me know that the subject matter, which is going to be their arrival to Third Earth and the other thing, people wanted to see this book. Is it good for the industry? Yes. Now, remember back in the day, 170 would have your book. If this was 90s and you were doing 170, they cancel your book. But now, at the amount of money that you're getting, 170 is the primo. Well, we've seen an uptick. Now let's hope that trend keeps going and we start seeing the uptick to these books, because the industry is on life support. If you don't have, look, this is good for the shop owners. This is good for any of the distributors. This is good for the fans. This is good for everyone. And, you know, whether it's Rob Liefeld's name on it, whether it's, you know, you got Jay Lee, who's another great artist that pops in and do some work. The 170 is the issue. This was not a fluke. This was something that we're seeing in the same way that, you know, comics are getting outbeaten by manga. We should actually be wondering, what was the formula? what did they do to get these orders? And hopefully Marvel, DC, and some of these, an Image and Dark Horse start taking a look at this and saying, what can we do? Maybe because it's a Thundercat title is one, maybe we cut 10 Batman titles and we concentrate on just 2. Maybe we don't have 4 Spider-Man titles. This may help the industry, and they need to study this formula because, again, some of these shops, some of these places are on life support. And if this is the thing that's going to help them out, let's hope this momentum keeps going, man.
I mean, the Rob Liefeld cover, by the way, doesn't look that good.
No, it does not. No,
I'm guessing Lion-O's chest is out to here.
No, not this time
abs.
around.
Lionel has 20 abs.
It looks like the same basic poses that he's done for the last 20, 25, 30 years.
Oh, just a guy standing like that?
Well, some guy with sword and some other people, but let's it wasn't the book didn't do well just because of the Liefeld cover. There's something in that 170. That means there's excitement in the stores. That means that Super 7 has done something that's reignited fans, because remember, like Chet was saying, 2017 they had a book that failed. DC did the Thundercats, it failed. Marvel did the Thundercats, I think it ran 12, 13 issues, it failed. This is the first time that fans have kind of jumped on. So like I said, again, for all these shop owners, for all you distributors out there, hey man, bravo to you guys. Hopefully you're gonna get new traffic into those stores, man.
I think what you said about the story, like how they arrived on whatever and stuff, I think it's the origin story. Everybody wants to, like, the Darth Vader origin was like, we waited for that for like what, 20, 30 years? And even what's that other, there's something else. It's the origin that drives you into wanting to see that. It's the Force, what we talked about earlier. The new Star Wars that they're looking at going back is how the Force was created. Like, I've always wanted to know, like, what do all the lightsabers mean? Like, give me a story on that. So I think what you said is the key to it all. This is something that people grew up with, and now you're giving us an origin story. Cool, I want to see it. Next is I want to see an animation or a film.
Yeah. Well, I think what's very relevant too is like a lot of the 80s cartoons and characters and animation too. So they probably capitalize on that. But to your point, Mr. Storm, it's great for the local mom and pops and the comic books. Like, hey, I don't hate when people come in and spend some money, right? It's but it sucks when people who are a-holes in the industry get rewarded when they shouldn't. So good point from Shadow. Before we get into our main topic, Star Wars versus Star Trek, I know Dr. Brantley's all about Indiana Jones for you all first-time listeners. We're on multi-platform, streaming live every Friday. Check out our channel. We're here Friday nights at 7 o'clock every week. Shadow Crew Podcast on the Shadow Knows Network. So where we can be seen. Subscribe, like, drop a comment, please. But the Indiana Jones video game finally released its trailer. Bethesda. I saw the trailer. It looks pretty awesome. I'm going to turn it to you, Dr. Brantley, as the Indiana Jones fan, and then I'd love just a couple minutes to talk through. You all excited? But Indy's back into the pop culture relevance again. A movie and a fast follow with a new video game.
Well, and the video game is probably going to have a lot more goodwill than the movie did. Just by the looks of it, it's the classic time of Indiana Jones when he's fighting Nazis. So that's always fun. But I don't have an Xbox, so I'm probably not going to be able to play it.
Oh, don't worry. I'm sure they'll one to pop out of the sky for you, brother. Like I said, you're on the bridge right now. Transport one up to you.
let me see if I can mail you one in time.
It looks really cool. The gameplay looks cool. I know we were talking a bit about it before the cast started. I think they probably invested a lot of time in the story. So you're basically invested in this kind of movie. I mean, the reason why like games like Uncharted and Last of Us do really well is like you're like immersed in the story and you're playing Indy. So as long as it feels like that, it's going to do exceptionally well. But Chet, like thoughts and you're heavily involved in video games.
This one might get me to come out and stream again for a little bit. So I remember when Bethesda when he was talking, and he said that like he would love to do an Indiana Jones game. And what I loved about watching this is like it's done in first person, which I think is an interesting concept. However, there are parts of the game that are third person, which I think is fantastic.
Mhm.
So I'm very curious to see how it plays. Like I when you sent that over and I realized that was like a thing, I was like scouring every video I could find about about the game, because it's definitely a game that I want to play from the start. My only concern, my only concern about this is Bethesda has a history of Bethesda is like the Stephen King of video games. The shit's really good, and then the end sucks. And so I'm hoping that's not what happens with Indiana Jones, because I don't know how you could screw up the end of the game. But like I said, I mean, like I'm excited because it's literally what we've always wanted. We got it with Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider was like fantastic to play. All of the Tomb Raiders are fun to play. Uncharted, one of my favorite series to hit PlayStation. Last of Us, obviously, is kind of like that. Last of Us 1. We don't talk about Last of Us 2. And so Indiana Jones, if it's done right, not only could it be a very, very good universe, but there's so much expansion opportunities in it, and not just like I'm not talking about microtransaction and picking at your pockets. I'm talking about just like storylines. Like however this ends, they could go into another one the same way that they did the movies, and it's just only going to get better. So I'm really hoping that they don't put the like Bethesda curse on it and make the ending horrible. I'm excited. I'm definitely going to play it.
Now, I wish they would have spent as much time coming up with a better name, because the Great Circle doesn't really sound exciting to me.
That's what I'm talking about. Like the Great Circle with Indiana Jones, you know that at some point in time in this game, they got to explain the Great Circle.
Well, they explained it in the thing that I watched, which, it's all the megalithic sites around the world. If you connect them with a line, it forms a great circle around the globe. But I'm guessing there's better descriptive terms you could have used than great and circle.
Yeah. Well, it came down to that and the mediocre triangle, and they went with the great circle. So that seemed like the best one. Look, I think as time progresses, we'll see more gameplay. But I think initially, it'll really do well, and we're excited about it. And if you want to fund Dr. Brantley's Xbox, drop a comment and support the channel, because the more subscribers and likes we get, the more money we could potentially make, and that could go into a live stream opportunity for Dr. Brantley. Who doesn't want to see that? Dr. Brantley streaming Indiana Jones live.
Exactly.
And I will wear the outfit the whole time too.
Yeah.
we need to put up this Cash App.
Yes. Please, sir, would you spare an Xbox?
Yes. On to our last topic of the evening, and that is Star Wars versus Star Trek. And we're not going to talk in retrospect of is Han Solo better than Picard? Is Chewie better than a Cleon? We're talking about as the franchise stands today, this year and beyond. What is better set up for success? What is the better looking franchise moving forward? Movies, TV, animation, storylines, who's at the helm creatively? Lots of things going on in the Star Wars universe. Some initial things now happening with Star Trek, some current stuff series on Paramount Plus, but some other stuff happening. So let's get into it. Well, Star Trek versus Star Wars.
Well, before we get into that, because I know, like I said again, our time is very limited with the Shadow Man, because his press agent told me Don't hold them too long. So, and like I said, his time is very precious. His time is we're paying Mr. Chatmatics to be here all the time, but Shadow did us a favor tonight. So we'd like to thank him for showing up, and hopefully he will keep popping back in. So now everyone knows why it's called the Shadow Knows Network. It's not because of the Shadow Crew. We're called the Shadow Crew because we're just the sidekicks. This is the man right here. So thank you, Shadow, for popping in tonight, brother.
I've had fun, man. I love you guys. This has been fun, and I don't know why it took me 23 episodes to jump on board with you guys, but I promise this: I will be back if you guys will have me.
Oh yeah.
I like to run my mouth sometimes too long, and look, I already see it's already over an hour and stuff. So y'all start talking about Star Wars and Star Trek, I'm gonna go on and stuff and blah blah blah. So
also, you got some new toy hunts coming up for the channel, right?
Yeah. First, let me give a shout out to Toys versus Games, which Mr. Storm, I see that you stay on top of that, letting everybody know what's up. I got some good things coming up. I'm going to Toys versus Games. I got some things to take and trade, and also to get like an in depth on what he's got going on, and give people like an insight on a collector's store and like where you go and why you go there and why he does it, because he has a great story on why he does it and stuff. So yeah, I want to dig into all of that stuff and share with everybody. I got some clips coming up and stuff. Like I said, I just went to the Ross and stuff, and yeah, AEW has dropped on. And Chris, man, AEW did drop at Ross. So yeah, thanks again, guys. I'm gonna shut my mouth up and stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and I need a refill anyway. So yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it. I'll be back. And we definitely, I think Mr. Chris here, we trying to set some stuff up for the Royal Rumble.
Look for a Royal Rumble video coming out. And talk about the state of wrestling, and we'll see what that looks like after the Royal Rumble, because that's going to tell us what's happening at WrestleMania. And are we looking forward to it, or did they drop the ball? So a lot of interesting things, including a big major injury that just happened to a big character in the WWE universe. So more to come, and that's next week. Saturday, Royal Rumble. So look for that video next week.
And it is the Squared Circle reunion.
It is.
Yeah, the Squared Circle reunion. The Iceman, the Web Now Tech Master, and the old Shadow Man. Yeah. All right. Guys, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed it. Ciao.
Awesome. Really good to have Shadow on, and
let the nerds talk about Star Wars and Star Trek.
I'm just glad that he, really was reserved about Rob Liefeld and how he felt with him.
I wish you would have told us how he felt.
Well, I think it's
he was classy. It was very classy the way he went about.
His PR people were hitting me like, get him off the show.
Before he says anything else.
Before this lawsuit said the Shadow Crew. It's like, you guys do understand it's called the Shadow Crew podcast. So you're liable for anything.
Well, let's just say Rob Liefeld. Let's just say that Shadow is Rob Liefeld's X Factor, if you know what I mean. Okay, moving on to Star Wars versus Star Trek. So, what are y'all thoughts here? And please, anybody in the channel, comment your thoughts on what the future looks like. I've always been more of a Star Wars fan than a Star Trek fan, although I do appreciate some of the things that have come from the Star Trek universe. I think my perception that aligns with a lot of people's thoughts is just like Star Wars is a bit more action oriented when it comes to the movies. And I think Star Trek is a bit more cerebral when it comes to some of the things like TV series and films. Not all the cases, especially the newer Star Trek stuff that has come out in the past. If I look at like what is on the horizon in the Star Wars universe, what gets me excited is that there's still some really cool characters out there and some good stuff. Dave Filoni at the helm. We've talked about Mandalorian Grogu movie. I think will do massive amounts of money in the box office. I still like Andor. I thought, it developed slowly, but it ended really strong. And a second season of that, I think, is going to be really badass. Ahsoka was really good. And I think if that continues along that path, that's going to be really cool. And like I've talked about like the kids animation, like the Young Jedi, that stuff is kind of cool. They still got the cool iconic characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
What scares me though is these like other one-offs, like this Rey movie, the spin-off of the last films. Some of the other TV series is oversaturated. You've got the Bad Batch, you've got this other thing coming up with like Jude Law that could be good. And so it's just like that's what is like, at least Star Trek, in my opinion, has less of that. It's not as oversaturated, right? It's like when something comes out, you're like,
they've only got 4 TV shows on the air now.
Well, but you know what I mean? Like it's Star Wars is just everywhere. It can be in your face, and it becomes less special. Like MCU, that's what happened. Is not only was it bad writing, the thing we can get into that, it was just a lot of Marvel. And it's like another Marvel TV series. Okay, I'll get to it. Versus, first Marvel TV series. Oh wow, Avengers movie. You got to see it now. It's like every other 3 months there's something new. So, if I'm looking at observationally, my heart is with Star Wars, but I have to be honest and say, like, if Star Trek turns around some really cool projects and Star Wars fails on some of these, I don't know. It could. It's 50-50. And only my heart speaking Star Wars.
I think it's it's 2 different separate concepts. One is rebellion and chaos through the universe, and the other one is the perfect future utopia where we have achieved other things in the higher enlightenment. And so I think it does appeal. I think the action fans love it. I think the intellectual fans love Star Trek. I happen to love them both down the line. There are pluses and minuses in both franchises. I think the upside has been Star Trek over the last decade. And I think that, the first couple of seasons of Discovery was fantastic. And it so gave us a little kind of, and I'll be honest with you, I really do think they took a little bit of the framework of what Star Wars was doing into approach now, because if you look at Star Trek, they only had the 70s animation. Now they have 2 animated shows. Prodigy does extremely well. Lower Decks is okay. It's just kind of a little bit of their South Park kind of scenario, but it has very funny moments. Crossover was fantastic between the animated show and the actual Strange New Worlds. Strange New Worlds is the pinnacle of what Star Trek could be. But the last season of Picard was what we should have seen in season 1, technically. So there's a lot of good that Star Trek's doing right now, and they're capitalizing on, and I've even heard they've even got Starfleet Academy that they're working on right now. And they're giving the fans what they kind of want, but also in the same way, when Discovery got to the point where it was becoming a little bit contentious with the fans, and a lot of people didn't like the direction and everything, Paramount did the smartest thing ever. They just canceled it. And the actual, a lot of the people on the show didn't even know they were going into the last season of the show. They knew when they had pushed it too far. And I think that be season 2 going into season 3, where they make a jump from one time to another, I think that was when the show took its wrong turn. And it's just been wrong for 3 seasons. And I think right now is the perfect time to get it gone before you get the fans. And they've got another flagship show like Strange New Worlds that has ignited the fans in an era that we haven't seen before. That I think they've taken the Star Wars philosophy and they've done it right. The only thing I'm worried about Star Trek with, I don't think it needs a 4th J.J. Abrams helmed Star Trek film. I think that's the thing that works.
I think they need to let Seth MacFarlane do it, because the Orville is really good. That's definitely inspired by Star Trek. And look, we have to understand there's going to be like purists that are going to hate this, because they're going to talk about how Star Trek isn't anything close to being blah blah blah, and it's like that's really not what we're talking about. I personally am always a little bit more excited to see what they do with Star Trek than I am with Star Wars. And it's only because Star Wars for the last, I don't know how many years, has just been really good at consistently letting everybody down. It's like, I don't know. I know people watch, like, people like Mandalorian. I got bored with that crap, like, fuck, like 3 episodes in. Can't really watch any more of it. Like, Ahsoka was great. The ending sucked. It's just like, how many more times am I gonna have to watch something that has millions of dollars invested in it, but nobody cares about like the actual thing, which is where I feel where Star Trek gets an advantage for me, at least, is that I feel like everyone involved, whether or not, like, and I agree with you, Mr. Storm, about Paramount canceling it at the right time, but
Mhm.
that's why I like and I'm excited about what Star Trek does, because it feels like people are just more in tune with what the, like, fan base is feeling about Star Trek. Lower Deck is funny, right?
Mhm. Mhm. That's funny.
It has bad times,
Mhm.
but there hasn't been a really massive upset in the Star Trek realm as there has been in Star Wars, and that's where I feel Star Trek wins.
Well,
And what there might be, but it hasn't been as many consistently as Star Wars. Because
Well, I'll
There
give
just
you one
not as
thing
many
that,
at bats
yeah,
to swing and miss.
I'll give you is that the difference between the two, and I think what it is that there's bigger pockets. Paramount can't afford Star Trek to be totally bad, because they built a whole streaming network based on it.
Yeah.
So if that's bad, they're in trouble. Disney, if it's bad, Disney can survive. They'll just piss off a lot of shareholders, and they'll try to see how they can make it up. And it's the same way. Like, I think the heads of, you've got the Kathleen Kennedy effect over at Star Wars, that for all intents and purposes has been a very negative effect. And I think that a lot of decisions, they have a director here, he's gone. They got a story here, they're gone. This is way too much, and the whole pushing of the Ray onto people didn't like the fans. Well, people started to not like Discovery,
Mhm.
and Paramount was like, we actually see this trend. Why destroy the franchise over one show? Let's just get rid of the show. And also, it was probably their highest running show anyways in the Star Trek realm, so you probably saved some bucks.
yeah, and with Star Wars, I think they're actually trapped by the success and
Hmm.
how big all the movies are, because if every show is not exciting and action packed, people are like, "Oh, what the hell was this? It was boring, nothing's going on." Whereas Star Trek, you can do anything in any episode. Like, you can
Hmm.
see God, or you can go back in time and visit a whale. There's all kinds of
Yeah.
crazy stuff that you can do. And so you're not limited by what Star Wars is. As in Star Trek, you can, anything,
Well,
absolutely anything.
I'll tell you, one of the smartest things for Star Wars that ignited the fans and got them to the point was the Clone Wars. There was a certain portion where we had seen everything and we got tired of the prequels and everything else. And then the Clone Wars came out, and people were like, well, wait a minute, these stories are interesting. These stories are told and directed. Well, a la Star Trek took a little bit of that. And you got to thank Dave Filoni for that piece of magic over there at Star Wars. But now we're Prodigy. And if you're looking at the numbers that's getting on Netflix right now, people are talking about, wow, because you can introduce a younger audience and keep that phenomena going. And I think there's a lot of things that Star Wars doesn't do as well. Tolerance is taught in Star Trek. Star Wars is about, hey, gunsling or, lightsaber somebody out of your existence. It has these kind of like different metaphors, but Star Trek has its pluses and minuses. Star Wars has its pluses and minuses, but I think if you're a fan and you're not happy with both of these progresses that they're doing this coming year, then you just don't like sci-fi, because
Yeah.
you've got two very good options that you can get. Now, I will say, thanks to the Paramount Plus, it's a little bit more affordable for Star Trek.
Well,
Yeah.
isn't Star Trek Prodigy Nickelodeon?
And no, it was Nickelodeon. Now it's on Netflix. So the second season, and I
Wait,
think that was Paramount's
so
terrible.
it's not licensed by Nickelodeon?
No, no, no. It was supposed to be. It was a dual show. It was on
Oh,
Paramount Plus, and then the later episodes they were going to try to transition to Nickelodeon. I think they rolled that out wrong, but it picked up enough goodwill to Netflix picking it up, and now it just premiered in December on Netflix, and it hit record numbers. and they've already got a second season going. So I think the same way Clone Wars ignited fans, younger fans, Prodigy is going to do that as well.
Yeah,
This
and
goes
if you
back-
haven't seen Prodigy, if you're a Star Trek fan, at least check out, I believe it was called Kobayashi Maru.
It was.
The episode where
Mhm.
they bring back a bunch on the holodeck of your classic favorite characters with their original voices.
Yes.
And it's beautiful.
Also, let me say this one thing too, is that Star Wars, while there's obviously you love William Shatner, and he's probably one of the last surviving real big people on that. But also, let's I was just looking at this in my notes and everything. This week, Mr. James Earl Jones, the greatest villain that has ever appeared on the screen, turned 90 years old too. So that's you've got two of the longest running franchises with so many characters that you see the longevity of them, that the actors are basically, the franchises are still going and the actors and the creators aren't. So
I have a question for you guys.
Yeah,
because you just brought it up.
Mm.
Were any of you as extremely disappointed as I was when Darth Vader lost his mask and it wasn't James Earl Jones?
Well, see, to be honest with you, when I was younger, I didn't know the difference between the actors of if it was James Earl Jones, or because we didn't have the internet, we didn't have spoilers, we didn't have all these situations. So
I mean, I
didn't really know what to think. It's just that his voice changed. Okay, it was no big deal. But now you look at it and you're like, well, actually, I don't know. I like I said, there's a side of me that's kind of glad that James Earl Jones is not the worst villain in all of space.
What I was just so mad because I was like, man, good.
They would have had a lot of explaining to do.
Yeah, would have been. It's like a Star Wars DNA test.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah,
makes sense.
I think what Star Trek needs to do, and I know we're kind of more of comparison and not like like what recommendation. What Star Wars has done really well, especially recently, is the spin-off character shows.
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek really hasn't done much of that, if any, really, like that Star Wars level. Sure. And so I think it would be really cool to take some characters in that universe and do like a 4-episode or do like a mini series or something along the lines to get people more invested in the universe, that the typical diehard Star Trek fans are people that have caught on for the Paramount shows. But I think all the characters we've just mentioned, a lot of them, the Mandalorians, the Andors, Ahsoka, those were all like, they're not main characters, and now we're starting to see the story. Star Trek has an opportunity to do that. Mm-hmm. Like build some characters. Like, is there a character today in the Star Trek universe that you would recommend?
I would
do a 4-part miniseries.
Yeah, we would have loved to see the Captain Worf series that we never got, and he begged for years. But the one thing that Star Trek does do that Star Wars hasn't been able to do as well is that they mix all their characters from the Next Generation to the original shows. These characters have jumped back and forth between shows, and it's been seamless. And like just like in Discovery, where you had like original shows and then new characters, and Star Wars sometimes they kind of alienate it. It's like when they tried to force the last sequels on you, people just did not like those characters, and they did not mesh well with the original characters. Star Trek has done that for like decades extremely well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to learn from both franchises, man.
Well, what about like a Bones spinoff?
I would love to see that. We would love to see a lot of those. They have the opportunity, I think, though. But the problem is like there's deeper pockets at Disney than Paramount's pockets. Yeah. Now Paramount combines pockets with Warner Brothers. You may see a lot more exploitation of those characters.
But see, that's the opportunity that's in front of them. Is like you can make this franchise for a newer generation so much more powerful than it is today, because sooner or later, more and more of the older fans are going to be gone. And so you're not quickly developing a younger audience that the Star Wars universe is. The Disney ties definitely helps them. The theme parks, the merch. But I think it's never going to get to that level, but you could at least capitalize on a growing TV film market of people looking for new content and new exploratory characters. So that's what I would say.
I think that's where Star Wars Prodigy comes into play, though. Is
Sure.
like you can use that to build like a young audience super quick, especially
Mhm.
if they're pushing it hard on. See, I always have problems with Netflix majority of the time, but I'm always aware that Netflix is extremely smart at
Mhm.
picking up franchises that didn't live out. Like they did it with Lucifer. I don't know if you guys ever watched
I
that.
did. One of my favorite shows.
But they canceled Lucifer, and then Netflix was like,
Mhm.
"Nah, this shit ain't done yet." And
Mhm.
it was great. They finished it off great, you know. And they're doing that with Prodigy. They did that with we talked about this like offline a little bit with like the Marvel series. Like Netflix nailed all of the Marvel ones they did. I know some of them had backlash, but like Luke Cage was one of my favorite ones they did. It was like just a different way to tell a story, and I see that with Star Wars Prodigy. And if they just continue down that path and
Mhm.
do animations that aren't necessarily adult animations, but like teeter on that, I think they have an opportunity to get a really young audience, and not to mention the sheer amount of like profit to be made from toys off of like Prodigy. Like, come on, if your kids are into it and they see it on Prodigy, they're gonna want the toys. That's how it works, right? Like that's like so there's a prime opportunity here for them to really do something with that IP, and I'm hoping it does go down that path because Star Trek is definitely a whole different concept than Star
Mhm.
Wars and has very many things. And I think that it's been that way since the beginning of time with Star Trek. It's been like we talked about, you know, go visit a whale, go go visit God, go visit this weird square in space. It's a bunch of robots that are. It's like so.
Abraham Lincoln, you
Yeah,
know, it's
Abraham
like,
was like, what the hell is going on in this? But the thing about Star Trek, which is awesome, is that there's always some weird ass lesson you're learning in every episode, and even as an adult, you're like, I hate that you're teaching me shit.
Well, I will say though,
So
do they have space whales?
yes, they do.
They do. Well, it's a whale that was in space.
Yes,
He wasn't actually
Okay.
in space. He was on the spaceship. So you
It
know, yeah.
counts.
And they did it first. Technically,
They
they
do.
did it first.
Well, I know we got a few more minutes left. Any other thoughts on the Star Trek, Star Wars battle here? The next 2 years, we could go around the horn here. You get to pick Star Wars or Star Trek the next 2 years, 2024, 25. What do you look more forward to? Dr. Brantley, we start with you.
Star Wars is going to make way more money with a Mandalorian Grogu movie, but I am actually looking much more forward to Star Trek, see what they do with the fourth movie, because it sounds like they might not be doing the Chris Pine thing immediately. They're doing some other kind of a Star Trek based movie. So it could be interesting, but it will not make nearly as much money.
Yep. All right, Mr. Maddox, Star Wars, Star Trek.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Star Trek on this one. And I'm gonna go with what I just talked about. I want to see Star Trek push more animation, and I'm hoping that it goes well, because there's a wider audience. You have the adults that could sit and watch it with the kids, and so they get to kind of relive that experience of their own, right? And so I do think Star Wars is going to make stupid amounts of money unless they somehow completely f-bomb that up. But I do think Star Trek could come out from behind and surprise a lot of people.
Okay. All right, Mr. Storm.
I think Star Trek has a brighter future, and I think I'm excited to see what Star Wars do. But I think Star Trek has a way of out nudging it just a little bit, man.
Okay. All right. If you asked me 6 months ago, I think I'd be aligned with all of you. But the recent news of Mr. Filoni at the helm gives me high hopes that the next 2 years, Star Wars is in good hands. Not to say there may be failures along the way, but I think I'm going to bank my money on Star Wars, not box office wise, as Dr. Brantley points out, but the sheer content of Mando, Grogu, Andor, some new additional content. Ahsoka. So there's a lot of cool stuff. So I will put my faith in the hands of Mr. Filoni. But with that being said, it was awesome to have the Shadow himself join the cast this evening. And as the Shadow, Mr. Shadow pointed out, as always, our sponsor, Toys versus Games. So give them a shout, give them a visit if you're in the area. We always like to work in partnership with local mom and pops, comic book stores, toys, games. As Mr. Storm pointed out, we love when a comic book does well, get footsteps in the door. We love, like we promote Ross and all these, but we don't get money from them. We're just those where the deals are at. But if you're looking for collectibles that you will not find at a Ross or TJ Maxx or DD's or an Ollie's, or maybe Ollie's, they may have some of that. You got to walk into the comic book stores and the collectible stores and get your hands on that stuff. So just as a reminder, Mr. Storm, any last thoughts before we adjourn this evening?
Yeah, I'm going to say that this was one out of 23. I'm thinking, other than the first couple of shows, that thanks to Mr. Shadow tonight, we can get to the best of series. So what we're going to do is we're going to transition the best of series to next week's show. So, because I don't think anybody wants to film anything after we get off. So, so we're going to do the best sidekicks next week. But we'll have all new other topics on it. So,
what are the rules, real quick, on best sidekicks?
Any genre, whether it's literature, whether it's comics, whether it's films, whether it's
so we can intertwine it. Any medium,
whoever you feel is some of the best sidekicks ever. So now we've got an extra week, and so I know I'm going to piss our editor off. We're absolutely sorry. We didn't know Shadow was going to pop in this long. We will definitely get to that because he's going to be like, I got to change thumbnails. I got to do this. I got to do that. Sorry, brother.
All good. Well, as always, follow us, subscribe, like the channel, comment. We appreciate you viewing this evening. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
The Shadow Crew Podcast.